Hi there. Welcome to AfterTheWell, the conversational podcast where you'll learn to realize the everyday encounters that seem mundane have the ability to transform your very existence. My name's Melissa Lappin, and I am so glad that you've chosen to join me and my friends as we chat about how we hear God in our everyday lives, because we're everyday people. We might laugh a little, we might cry some, but know that you're going to go away encouraged by the stories that we share. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Welcome to AfterTheWell. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of AfterTheWell. I am so glad that you've joined us again. If you're here for, a repeat listen, thanks. If this is your first time, welcome to my show. And today I have my friend Jason Weaver, who we've known each other through the wonderful world of Zoom for a couple years now, through a mutual school that we do, which is School of Kingdom. And I interviewed his wife, Esther. I just forgot her name. I interviewed Esther a couple episodes ago, and we had a great time, and so I figured I would give Jason a shot, too. So, Jason, introduce yourself a little bit, and let's just see where this goes.
Sure. Well, thank you, Melissa, for having me, and thank you to those of you who are tuning in. You guys are awesome. So, yes, I am Jason. I'm a husband, father of four. We have 4 kids. We currently live in Southern California. I've lived a few different places throughout the world, including South Africa for a number of years. I've lived in Europe for a few months at a time at different times in life, and lived in numerous states in the United States, coming out of Pennsylvania. So that's a little bit about my history, my background, and then, I'm really passionate about seeing the world changed for good, just the possibilities that humanity carries to just bring great things to the world around us, and then, just the value of people, understanding yourself, the value you have, understanding the value of people around you, especially through personality. So that's kind of what I'm into, what I care about, and where I came from. So,
yeah, that's one of the reasons that I didn't know that you lived in South Africa and Europe and all of that. Was that for work, military, both?
Yeah, so that was actually with a nonprofit organization, a church, and so we were doing, in South Africa, we were doing social outreach projects, daycares, centers in some of the low income areas, as well as starting some churches and doing things like that. So that's actually where my wife Esther and I, we started dating, got married, and had our first 2 kids while living over there. And that was all centered around empowering people, just helping to bring solutions to life, which has been kind of the key threads throughout my life. No matter what I was involved in, it's always looking for, hey, how do I help empower people? How do I bring upgrades to situations, to the world around me? So that's where that came from, and what we were doing over there. And just finding ways to be an asset in life. So that was South Africa, and Europe was kind of a similar. We worked with some churches over there at different times, being part of an international ministry and getting around that way. So that's what has taken us to, different nations in Africa, Europe. So even though we lived in South Africa in Cape Town, we went to Swaziland. We got out of the country there a little bit in different cities in South Africa. Europe, we spent time in different nations over there, doing different things with the church, and kind of in the space of coaching, inspiring, motivating people just to be their best, to understand their identity, especially identity in God and the original intent for their lives. And that's kind of been a main thing I've centered my growth, education, the tools I've picked up over the years is really around helping people understand the greatness that's inside of them and how they can bring that to the world. And so, that's where I talked about helping people understand themselves and other people through personality. The way you're wired is a big deal to me. I think it's, a key part to who we are and how we like to show up and operate in the world. And so the more that we can understand that and get clear on that, the easier it is to just live life to the fullest, to thrive in who we were made to be. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to have you on here, just to talk about that a little bit. So here we have found our thread. So let's follow that. I love that you love to activate people in their identity. Because I love that. That is a big gift that I have. One of the main things is I'm an activator and a relator, an individualizer. And so understanding how a person is, learning how to partner with them and activate them and bring those aha moments and stuff to them. Talk a little bit about that more, about what it is inside you that drives you to do that. When was your, okay, so this whole podcast is based on AfterTheWell, right? Where the Fatini, the woman at the well, she had her moment with Jesus, right? Okay, so looking back, where would you think your well moment was when you had your moment with Jesus and you're like, oh, I get it now, and that there was something inside you that was ignited and you just started running with it? When did all that happen? Or can you point to one?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of go back to my process and my journey, I think, to bring that into play, because a lot of times we talk about some of your biggest frustration becomes a place where you dive into and becomes an area of your greatest passion, right? And so I think for me, growing up, whether it was intentionally communicated, a lot of times things are unintentionally communicated to us, but really feeling like who I was and the way I approached things needed to change in order to be good enough or to be successful. My kind of innate wiring, my strengths weren't what was going to make me successful, weren't going to be what people needed, and therefore I needed to change. And so that was one of the big driving factors in understanding yourself. I got to the point where I was like, wait a second, like, I am tired of this feeling like I need to continue to change. Like, I want to be authentically me in my correct identity, not in some abstract picture. Authenticity can get a little bent out of shape at times as well, because there's pressure to be something different in that. But just saying, all this time I'm trying to be something else. It's not working. You go up through high school, I go to Bible college, I'm going around the world in these different places. So for me, I'm not really a communicator, a speaker like that. So let me backtrack. When I use personality, I don't use it as a box that I'm trying to fit you into. All right, I see it as a platform you can build on. And so when we look at these different things and begin to understand ourselves, it's not that you're defined by them, but for me, it gave me a reason. I recognized myself and was like, that's why I do certain things. That's why I approach situations a certain way. And it brought understanding to me. not a limitation. And so, I encourage you, never box yourself in with these things, but allow it to help you identify and recognize who you are and be confident in that, and say, you know what, this is who I am. It's amazing. I'm bringing a lot of greatness and gifts to the world, to the people around me, and let me utilize those. So I'm in Bible college, and we're trained to speak. We're trained to preach. I end up, going around the world in different places with a team. We're doing a lot of meetings, and it's always like, you got to speak. If you want to be successful, it's like you need a spot on the platform, and you need to be speaking. And I couldn't figure out, like, every time I needed to talk and do all this communicating, I was so, like, drained of energy. It's like waking up every day, man, if I need to live my life constantly communicating and setting myself up to be this communicator, this isn't working for me. And I know that my wife, God has created me a certain way. And so that kind of led to me diving into everything and saying, hey, if I was frustrated as a kid, as a teenager, and then getting into the career space and following that, just trying to be someone else, and there's so much value in the differences we bring together. And so going down that line and beginning to understand that was what drove, that's what drove me down that path. So
yeah. And that's good. That's a good jumping off point. I guess kind of a teaching moment for people is, like, we get in our lives, and we get in relationships, whether it's, at work or family or friends, community, whatever. And we constantly find ourselves being triggered. And we're just like, what is that? I hate that person, But we don't take the time to understand how they are, how we are, and how either personalities are going to be oil and vinegar and make a really good salad dressing, or they're going to be gas and fire and make an explosion, right? And so it's just, especially in our country, and I hate to lump our whole country in one big pot, but there's so much, especially now, of just a lack of personal responsibility. Everything has become someone else's fault, instead of people taking the time to learn who you are. Because even, there's positives and negatives to every trait, right? And even if you learn, oh, okay, so in the negative, I can be whatever. Like my personality, if when someone with my personality types, whether it's the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, the DISC, whatever, I am a strong female, and we can be, control freak bitch, that's what, if not humble, that's the negative part of it, right? You're just controlling, you're an alpha female, and you will eat your young, and, and all this kind of stuff. But when I humble myself and know that, then I can go, oh, okay, I feel myself getting in a way where I want to control the situation. Do I need to control the situation, and how can I do that from a kingdom perspective? Or do I just need to step away and pass it off to someone else, right? And we sadly don't take the time to do that. I mean, like what you said, when, you had to speak and all this, and it was just draining for you, because it's probably just not your personality to be extroverted, right? But then also as speakers, because like even doing this podcast, I started it February 7th of this year, so it hasn't really been that long. But doing it every week and finding the people and doing that, and that's all been fine. But it's like, okay, what do I sound like? What's my message? Do I have to be, and there are millions. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of podcasts there are, literally. And I love podcasts because I love information, and I love the type of platform a podcast is because it's usually not just teaching, it's more conversational, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And so it's like, oh, do I want to sound like this person? Do I want to sound like that person? Da 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 da. And finally, I'm just like, F it. I just got to start talking, right? So that's why it's me, because this is who I am, And I had to be comfortable with that. I had to be comfortable with, I'm not going to sound like Joe Rogan. I will never be the number one podcast, ever. It's not my goal. If God wants to do that, fine. I'll play God's game. I'll go along for the ride. But I know that it's just not in my DNA to be that. And so I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't understand who we are. And the good, the bad, the ugly, the questionable, And instead of passing the buck, oh, they just this or they just that, or they just need to understand me. That's just who I am. Yeah, well, let's talk about that, Yeah.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And all these amazing strengths brought together make a complete picture, but we won't be able to engage and utilize the strength that other people have if we're constantly overriding, rejecting, causing frustration or being frustrated with. And so being able to take, and I think that's where being clear in yourself, in a conversation we had last night, you were talking about kind of your playground and knowing, your space where you can operate and how you flow in that, just allows you to be more confident to say, hey, I can be more accepting and supportive of you because I understand also who I am as well, and bring that together. And, it's really draining when you're trying to be everything to everyone, but the world needs all these pieces. And so if I can be myself and focus on what energizes me and what I bring best to the table and what I do naturally, instead of always trying to shift it and waste my energy trying to be something else, and allow you to be your best and just come together. That's what's awesome. And to go to my speaking thing, when I was doing a lot of speaking all the time, the Bible says virtue left Jesus, right? At one point. And so I would get done with preaching, and I'd be so tired and exhausted. I was like, man, that must be what happened, virtue must be leaving. What's going on here? And then later come to realize, hey, it just takes so much energy in my style for verbal communication. That takes a lot of energy from me. And so I can do it because, I want to have impact. I want to see people's lives empowered. That's what I care about. And so I'll take time to come on here and speak to you. I'll teach in School of Kingdom. I'll do these different things, but I'll do it. I have to limit that time because, I could speak. I might get finished here, and the rest of my day, I will be a little ineffective with things because of the energy and the focus it takes for me to be ready for this, to do it, and then to recover afterwards. And so just being aware of myself and saying, hey, that's why it wasn't working very well for me to get up every day and be like, let's go speak 3 times today and try to figure out how many of these I can set up, because I wasn't even naturally motivated to set things up. I would be just avoid it subconsciously, because that internal thought of communicating, even though I wasn't always conscious of it, was kind of grinding against my natural thing. So I'm more of a researcher, detailed-oriented, fact-finder type person who builds out systems, if you guys haven't noticed by my communication already. And so for me, it's like, hey, if I can research, if I can think, if I can problem solve and figure things out, that's more my sweet spot than getting out here and saying, hey, I have a bunch I want to say, let me communicate that. And then to go along with that, then being like, hey, actually doing a lot of speaking to a larger group and not being able to connect. I do better connecting more smaller group one-on-one feedback, interaction, conversational style than just communication. That is more draining for me just to broadcast out. And so being aware of that and saying, hey, how can I be most effective in my space to empower people? And so, just marrying that together. And then with your point as well, recognizing the people around you. So as I dug into personalities, and you talked about the United States and people not taking responsibility, but, I think you kind of have that around the world. I've traveled quite a bit, and you have different personalities everywhere. You have people grinding against each other, being frustrated, or utilizing the differences and working together well. And then B, I don't know, we don't need to go down this track, but it might be more of a generational thing where, hey, the cycle of society has gotten to the point where things are easier, and so when it's easier, life is easier in a lot of instances, then we don't always need to take responsibility for things, and we can kind of blame it on someone else, and we can just exist and benefit from kind of the work the generations before put in. That's a random thought, I know, but so I think you see that around. But
it's very true. Yeah. We have a delay, so go ahead. Okay,
yeah. So, and then that came into play. Then getting married for Esther and I, because we're two complete opposites, and you find a lot of times opposite people end up attracting to each other. And it's not necessarily. I've talked to people and they're like, yeah, opposites attract. I like sports. My wife doesn't like sports. I mean, that can be some of it, but I think the deeper picture is in personality and stuff, because you begin to experience a different part of life in the world from a different personality, and that draws you together, as well as it's a strength where you can work together well. And it doesn't always happen, but it happens quite a bit. And then my wife and I, we began to find that we tried to, first, the differences were interesting and what brought us together, but after that you begin to kind of try to change each other. You have frustrations in communication. You're like, I show up and I just do things this way. I talk about money this way, and you have a completely different view on what we're going to do with money, how we work, what money's for. And it's like, well, are you trying to sabotage our life? And then we end up trying to change each other. And so that brought a big upgrade into our relationship and marriage as well. So,
yeah, and in all of this, communication is key. Knowing yourself, knowing, like I said earlier, good, bad, ugly, questionable parts of your character and your personality, but then learning how to communicate that, that, hey, what I'm feeling now is XYZ. And especially in marriage, so for those of you single people out here, take notes, because it will happen. You are not immune to like the first year of bliss and then the next 5 years of crap, because you spend the first year being in honeymoon, and then right after that, it's just like, okay, we're done with all that. Let's get down to the life, right? But being able to communicate how, and knowing yourself too, and I just wrote it down, it allows you to have grace for the other person. When you know the personalities and you understand that, oh, they're just not being a jerk. It's like, oh, okay, so they value this. And the first one you talked about the sports, like the difference, I like sports and my wife doesn't. Okay, well, let's figure out, okay, why do you like sports? Because it's dominating. You got to win. There has to be a winner and a loser, and your wife doesn't see that, and so it's not just because you like sports and she doesn't. There is something innately in you that likes all the parameters of an athletic event, and it has nothing to do with male or female. That's that's gender bias, that's whatever, because I love sports and my husband doesn't, so it has nothing to do with gender. Right. But no, dominating is good, winning is better, I mean, you just guess if you can't win, why play?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, can't we just have fun? Why do you have to be that way? And I'm like, just whatever. Turn in your chips and go home. We're good. We're done. But
that's great.
But understanding all of these things, there's so much freedom in it. And you mentioned earlier, I mentioned it in class last night, our School of Kingdom class, that when you understand the parameters, there's so much more freedom. When you understand that I don't communicate this way, so therefore I'm not going to try, that opens up a whole other world of opportunities for me to figure out how I communicate. Okay, I can do a group of 20 people. I will find those opportunities to speak. I don't want to speak in front of thousands like, a Beth Moore, a T.D. Jakes, or whoever. I don't want to have a mega church. I'm good with my small group of 10 people at my house every other Sunday, Yeah. And that allows us to have freedom when we understand who we are, and we give ourselves grace. To go, you know what, I'm okay with not. And we don't have so much FOMO because we're not trying to fit in and impress people and be part of everything because we're going to miss out or whatever. I mean, I still suffer with that just because I like to do everything, But I've learned not to have so much anxiety about it, It's like, okay, why do I have to be there? Does it fit in this, or this? No. Okay, then we're good. So...
Yeah,
do you use
so
this
then
for
that leads
work?
to
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We have a delay, and this is killing me.
Yeah, I'm never quite sure if I should answer or if there's a delay and you're coming in. Yeah, but before that, just like that ability to recognize, some of the greatest fears of humanity is not being accepted. Am I good enough? Or will I be rejected? And being able to, accept yourself and have that confidence and that understanding, hey, I am good enough. I'm valuable. I would say you're good enough and you're valuable outside your personality. And then your personality is just, a gift on top of that, or part of the way you express that value and greatness. But just being able to, different people are going to have different approaches. So for you, FOMO, because of your style, you're seeing all these possibilities, everything you could do. You believe you can do a lot of those things and you can accomplish everything, where you're going to have a different personality style that's like, I'm just not good enough. They don't have quite the ego strength. And I'm saying ego strength in a good sense because, those of you who have that strong ego strength, you're able to walk through challenging situations and come up with a solution. You're able to persevere and get through. But some other people more just kind of pull back because they don't have that high ego strength. And so for them, it's like, well, I'm not valuable enough. I'm only good if I'm, hidden and so on. And just being aware of saying, hey, for you, it's recognizing you're valuable in your supportive role, in you being that friend or whatever. And that's also great. And in being able to embrace that. And then, you mentioned about, do I use it for work? I do use it for work. Part of what I've been building. So we were living in Pennsylvania, felt like a little over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, my wife and I were like, hey, I feel like there's a change that's happening. We feel like God is, leading us to something else. I was doing a lot of this educating, coaching, consulting on the side, and personality, and helping people, figure out how do we change the world in a positive way? How do we be solutions in any space in society, things like that. I was doing that on the side while running an electrical contracting business. And, we're like, hey, there's a change coming. And we felt Southern California. We knew one family here. And we just packed up our kids and life and moved out here. And, I began to focus more on putting more energy on the things, I care about in propelling people in understanding themselves, living a full, thriving life, not trying to be something different. And so I use it in coaching and consulting individuals, helping them say, hey, this is who I am. These are my strengths. This is what I bring to the table when I show up at work, in family life, whatever. Just helping you recognize and be clear on who you are. Then I use it in families as well. I talked about how it was a big deal in our marriage with Esther and I beginning to understand each other. And, when she walks into a room and communicates in her style, then I understand it's not an attack against me. It's not an attack against the situation. This is her being her. I can value that. She can value my communication style back. And then together we can say, hey, how do we use your strengths in this situation? She's a very optimistic, motivating communicator. If you didn't hear her episode, that's who she is. I'm very practical, factual, the complete opposite. And so bringing those together and saying, hey, all right, we need some ideas. We need to look at having some fun or some possibilities. Esther, what are you bringing? What do you see when we need to figure it out and, manage resources, get the ducks in a row? That's where I operate best. And so that was huge. But then we had kids, and our kids are all different. And so I help families as well, like recognize, hey, who are your kids and how can you support them and who they are? Because our oldest, she's like a strong personality. When you give her chores, she wants everything. Give me the whole list. I'll figure out how I do it, when I do it, whatever, and I'll bring you the finished product. Well, we did that to our second one, and she's a complete opposite personality. She's overwhelmed when you give her a list of items to do. She works better giving one task, letting her complete it, and then giving her the next one. And so recognizing that and just supporting our kids that way. So I help parents understand, hey, these are who your kids are. This is a way you can support them and stop, having this frustration in communication with each other. And then I do that in team building as well in organizations, because, hey, when you're trying to do business or any type of organization and work as a team, I use it in my son's soccer team with the coach. I'm like, hey, coach, that kid that you're trying to make a defender, he's not wired to think defensively. He's wired to think offensively. And so you're getting frustrated why he's not disciplined in his position and he's always moving forward. But I'm like, he's not wired that way. And so I even work with the coach and saying, hey, this kid will be better if you place him up here and things. So.
And that's so valuable because we're like, you're not going to pick up a hammer and stir cake batter with it unless you're like really desperate. But,
right.
So we have all of these other tools that we have that we know their function. People will spend so much time research, like you're a researcher, you want to know how things work and break them down and the modes of how, like that, and we do that. How many times, I don't know, jump on YouTube and figure it out, we all have a degree in YouTubeversity, yeah. Right? And yet when it comes to ourselves, we're just like I don't know, we fall short most of the time. We don't know that it's an option. We think, oh, well, that's just the way I'm made, or we take some random test, like the Enneagram or whatever. We box ourselves in, we label ourselves, we package ourselves and go, oh, I can't do that. I'm a 2. Okay, no, that's not who you are. That's not who God says you are. You are much more than just a 2, you know. If you're going around fixing everybody because you're a 2, let's talk about that, right? You know, there's more to who you are than just like the shortcomings or the dysfunctions. And for those of you who can't see, I'm using air quotes as for dysfunction. Because it's just not. There's nothing innately bad or wrong in who we are and how we function. It's just positive and maybe negative. And a negative isn't bad because it's still information that you can use to get freedom. You know, but we spend so much time on all this external stuff and figuring out, you know, how can I be part of this group? Let me figure out all the things I can do and the hoops I can jump through to be a part of this group, you know, or make all this money or go these places or do these things or have this stuff when we're dying inside. And that's the most important place and that we need to be working on is our own heart, you know? And I you know, there's a lot of quack stuff out there too. You know, there's like, really? You're going to equate me to the color purple? Okay, let me take that test and see what nonsense it is. You know, or what Disney princess are you? Okay, those are not legitimate personality tests, people. Just stop. Get off of Facebook. Get off of Facebook. You know, just, you know, it doesn't matter what Disney princess you are. Come on. You know, but that right there shows how desperate we are to figure out who we are. You know, and it's sad that we just spend so much external time and then we take a 2-minute quiz on Facebook and, I'm like Ariel. Okay, let's talk about how dysfunctional Ariel was, right? So, get me on a rant on that. I'm just like, love-hate for Facebook.
There you go. I mean, it's everybody. You know, we deep within, we're made to engage the truth of who we are, right? And that kind of original identity. And so, innately, we're searching to, if we can't find it, we're searching to find out, hey, what does that look like? And so I think when you flip it around and you begin to first find external things to identify who you are, that's where it gets challenging because in our desire to belong, we're made to belong and connect. Then we try to mold ourselves to fit that expectation or what was put there. And coming from the place where if I understand before and this takes time, it's easier said than done, but before I've done anything, I'm accepted and valuable, and then going from that place. You know, it's easy to say before you do anything, before you've said anything, operated, you're accepted and valuable, but to actually believe that's hard, or that takes a process. But then when you can understand that and begin to look from there, okay, these are, you know, strengths, qualities, personality style, whatever you begin to add to that, then you can operate from the place of, hey, I'm bringing a value. This is part of the gift of who I am to the world versus I need to perform or do something in order to be valuable. And I think that's where you get some of to me, you know, you can talk about the negativity or the negative side of personality, and I don't like to use that language too much, just for the fact of when we feel something is a weakness or it's negative, we always want to fix it. And so a push for a long time in the personality space was, hey, focus on your weaknesses, change your weaknesses. Well, it's like, this is just an area that I'm not energized in, that I don't function as well in. But if I pour all my energy and focus into trying to develop that, I'm not going to, be feeling alive and living alive, but I'm also going to be wasting all this time and energy trying to, in essence, be something I'm not. And so it's like, all right, if I operate and bring my strengths and I'm aware of who I am and I'm not operating out of, my kind of fear. So if for my personality style, I like accuracy, I like excellence, I could like perfection. But perfection is not obtainable ever, right? And so if I operate out of my fear, I'm saying it's not good enough, and then I overuse my strength. And I think that's just where if you're self-aware, you can say, hey, this is my strength. And instead of it's crappy or this is negative and it's a weakness and let me focus all on that, just recognize, hey, this is what I do really well. And as long as I understand that, sometimes good enough is good enough. Like I can't hit perfection and go in that. I think that makes for a healthy situation, in my opinion. But that's where then, you can move from trying to find all these little pieces to identify yourself with and move from that place of belonging and I'm good enough. But I think that's where we as individuals play a big part in other people's lives, because you were talking about, the Facebook princess thing. Well, I need to look for something out there if I'm not being accepted by people around me, or I begin to look, right? And so that's where we can play a role as we understand ourselves and begin to understand people around us. We can be supportive and embrace that and say, hey, I know you're different, but hey, it's valuable. You don't have to feel like you're rejected, not good enough. Let me see what Disney princess I am in order to be valuable, and kind of go down that thought. But anyway.
Yeah, and that's
where my mind goes.
Very, very true. Yeah, and it's true. It is true. I mean, we all, because especially in the business realm or ministry realm, or I guess even just life, we shouldn't even categorize it, because inevitably, just like marriage, where I am weak, my husband is strong. And vice versa, and we complement, and that is why opposites attract, right? And knowing, for me, one of the biggest freedoms in doing personality stuff, because the DISC was one of the first ones we did like 25 years ago, in understanding the personality types, it made me realize that there are only certain personality types that I can be around. I'm like, okay, you got like 20 minutes and then I'm gonna have to leave the room. Bye-bye. Because of the high I, or, just whatever it is about that personality. But then also learning how to have grace for them, and learning that I need to not be so retentive in my personality, and so we do, because and people need people like me, and that, just being super vulnerable right now, that is one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn, and to give myself grace, because I am a strong personality. I'm not like okay, I am. I could run people over very quickly. I don't mean to, but I'm just like, hey, let's get stuff done. Let's do things. I'm motivated by productivity. I've always known that. I don't keep myself like busy, but I'm a doer. Camping is awesome. I love this. But let me tell you, when we pull in the driveway, it's going to be, let's unpack the camper. Let's get this done. Let's get this done. Because I got to go do stuff. Done. And, I'm on to the next thing, right? But learning that there are people out there that need my personality, because I will ask the hard questions. I will challenge people in painful ways. And that's happened. And not sorry if you're listening to this podcast. I mean, we just left our church 3 weeks ago and part of it was that some of it was personality, but in it, I was accused of constantly trying to create a platform for myself. I'm like, I don't want no freaking platform, bro. If not even going to go there, I'm going to be good. But there are people that will say, I'm so glad I have someone like you in my life because I see you do things and then I'm challenged to do things and it's just not my personality. I'm like, okay, well, let's have that conversation, because I'm not afraid to have the conversations because I know that is how God wired me, to have those conversations. And I'm going to be challenging. And am I going to be a jerk about it? Hopefully not. But, if we're having the same conversation, it's like, hey, we've had the same conversation for the last 2 years. Can we have a different conversation? Can I give some input here? Because I'm really tired of having this conversation, And yeah, so communicating and knowing yourself and like I said, I always say the good, bad, questionable, ugly, all of it, but being humble and teachable to go, okay, you know what? This is who I am, but I'm not going to stay here. And if I can't fix it, I'm going to honor it,
Sure.
And even if that's, I'm going to honor this by putting it on a shelf for a while, so I don't have to, we're not going to bring that out to play. That's how best I can be honoring to other people who need me, who need my personality. Like, okay, like there was someone that came yesterday and hung out, and I literally have a couple hours with her, and then I'm like, yeah, don't you have someplace to be, and because it's just a personality thing, and I love her, I think she's awesome, but in doses, so everybody, we all need somebody else. We all need people who are opposite of us. It's how we grow.
100%. Yeah, for sure. And they see a different point of view. They bring a different point of view. They help us understand things. Mm-hmm. And they're able to, do things differently. And I think in life, again, we've talked about that a little bit before I talked about the need to belong or feeling you're not good enough. But then especially within the church, a lot of it has become, we need to be so much the same. Like I can't bring a different point of view, or I can't bring a different thought or be passionate about a different truth of who God is, because how can we go to, then it's like, well, we can't fit together. And it's like, well, God is so amazing, and there's so much greatness in who he is and what he does and who he made us to be. Like, it's okay if you're passionate about this one area and I'm passionate about another area, like let's do it together. But you find that in personality as well, that grind. It's like, well, if you're seeing it different than me, if you're trying to be different than me, then that's not working. And not going personally into your situation, but your situation as an example, when I'm coaching people or consulting with people, it's like, I always use, hey, when you find the strength you're bringing not being accepted in a situation, a circumstance, by people, by the circumstance, whatever it is, that's the moment you can look and say, hey, is this for a short time? So you are a problem solver, Melissa, you're a leader, you like to get results. And so you can take it and say, is this a moment where I don't need to, and don't take this the wrong way, it's like, I don't need to be the leader to get results here. It's okay to have someone else do that for the moment. Or is this a situation that is constantly rejecting the strength that I'm bringing, right? If it's for a moment, okay, how do I can manage myself, I can be, okay, we might take a little bit longer to get to results or whatever, but this is momentary. And then I'm going to bring my strength alongside that later, and it will be good. But if it's a situation where you're constantly like, no, Melissa's, she's out of line. She's always trying to take the lead. develop a platform. Some of you stronger women in the church world probably have been, termed a Jezebel for that, because you're a strong personality, wrongfully termed a Jezebel, because you guys are a gift, whether you're a male or female. That ability to be that visionary, to drive results, to get action moving forward, to see the big potential, that is all a gift, to be that creator. But so if you're in a situation where it's constantly being rejected and you can't bring your strength, and you're always trying to shift yourself outside of your natural ability, your natural strength, then you might have to move on. You might have to say, hey, this isn't working. In my job, in my career, every day I have ideas and solutions, and it's being rejected and not wanted, whatever. Then it might be time to look for somewhere else, because you're going to end up being stuck in survival mode. You're going to be internally fighting for who you are,
it's
and
exhausting.
You're not going to be thriving. It's exhausting. So what you find is all your energy gets focused into that space.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure, and that's it. And for a long time, and I think some people, I think it goes across the board, not just my personality. And we may have mentioned it earlier. You might have mentioned it. When we get ourselves in those situations, in those relationships, we feel like there's something wrong with us. Like if there's all this rejection constantly, I'm broken, I'm wrong, and I gotta fix it. And, sometimes it's you just gotta walk away, you just gotta put a smile on it. Like Dub says, bless them and block them. You just gotta, it's like, I will never be good enough for the situation, And so, but yeah. Right. So wrapping up, which I hate to do because this is a great conversation. What's some words of wisdom that you would like to leave with the listeners, kind of summing up all the things that we talked about today? Just go find yourself.
Yeah. Go find yourself in the Disney princess assessment.
I was going to say, go take that Disney princess test.
No, first of all, just to reiterate, no matter whether or not you feel it, you're valuable and you're accepted, whether you understand that or not, just in who you are. That's greater than your personality and all that. So, begin to lean into that, or take time to think about that and be like, well, what does that mean? Because if you can be stabilized in that, and find some friends who, maybe they're accepting of you in who you are, that will help. And then, to me, I think it's super valuable to explore and say, hey, what is my personality style? What is the way I operate? Because when you can identify that, then your confidence is there, right? You can establish confidence. You can understand why you've had some conflicts, certain places. You can understand why you didn't feel like you fit. You can understand what energizes you and what doesn't, so that you can thrive. And then after that step, you can begin to recognize the people around you and say, hey, you know what? We can work together really well. Whether it's friendship and just having fun and doing life together, your differences complement mine, whether it's in your marriage, parenting, whatever. And then, just allow people to be themselves, and allow yourself to be yourself in that space. And don't feel so much negativity, weakness, incompetence, any of that stuff attached to who you are. Rather say, hey, these are my strengths. This is what energizes me. This is what I was born for, and lean into what energizes you, because that's where you'll produce your best. You'll be your best. You'll bring your best self to the world. And I'm big on solutions to the world around you. So you'll bring your best solution, If I can do research, if I can bring in that systematic, as you hear my conversation today, Esther always gets mad because we'll go live together sometimes and talk, and she's like, you always kind of teach and go deep into this stuff. And I'm like, well, and Melissa may be like, you're not that much of a conversationalist. You get very factual, and that's so. But I know that's what I bring to the table, and so I do my best to fit certain situations at times, knowing though that my strength is X, Y, and Z, and when I'm going to bring my best in certain areas, I'm going to lean into those strengths, and that's what energizes me. And I think being aware for yourself. Wherever you're listening, whatever your personality style, that's going to be super beneficial. Whether you're that creator that sees the big picture and vision, you're driving things forward. Maybe you're an advancer who's loves to communicate, inspire, motivate people, have some fun. You might be an executor who's likes the routine, and you're building that close relationship and connection, and you're there as a supporter. You don't want to be front and center. You want to support and just assist. Or you might be a refiner like me who likes to get that, things excellent, make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, all the numbers are in place, that things are working out. Wherever it is, and whatever combination of those you are, it's amazing, and you're awesome in that. So.
Yeah, everything that you just described is me. I want it all. I like going forward. I like dreaming about it, activating people to come with me. I mean, it's like all of it. So I got to pick something because I can't be perfect at everything. So. So I know you do this for a living, right? The coaching, because you've mentioned it a couple times. Can you tell the people real quick how to get in touch with you? Yes. And they will. This information will also be in the show notes, so I need a link from you as well. But yeah, if you just throw it out there real quick.
Okay. Yes. So it's jasontweaver.com. T is in Tom. .com. There we have this personality assessment you can take. I do the assessment, and then another one thing I do is the assessment with a personal video that I go through and help you understand some things. We also I can do organizational consulting, or with your family, more package deal, help you see how everyone fits together, understanding where you might have conflict, or, positioning people for the right responsibilities within your family or organization. Don't have the communicator who likes to have fun and doesn't work with details very well handling your accounting or your scheduling, maybe, because it won't jive and people will be frustrated. So jasontweaver.com.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it because we've taken class from him for the last couple weeks, and it's been really good. And the DISC test, DISC test is.
Yes.
It's a pretty basic test. It's a pretty easy test, but there's a lot of revelation in it. And I know I'm starting a whole nother talk, but I swear I'll say goodbye in a second. But at one point we homeschooled our kids, and it was an absolute volcanic nightmare. It was the worst decision, but we went to a church that if you loved your kids, you wouldn't put them in public school. It was a cult. It was so bad. It was so horrible. So we did it. Young Christians were like, oh, we can't let our kids go to public school. That's bad. Well, we took the personality test, the DISC at church, right? And my son and I literally, we were within 2 or 3 points of everything. He is a carbon copy of me. Oh my God, it was horrible, and it was no wonder. We fought all the time, and it was just a nightmare. But once we took the DISC test, we realized, okay, these personalities, you're going to public school, buddy. You and Jesus, you just go. Get on that bus, and you just go. You just gotta trust. So. If the listeners out there want some I don't know, not validation, but an example of some encouragement to say yes to the disc test, and, get with Jason, let him help you run through it and break it down a little bit, because sometimes those things can be overwhelming, especially if we've never done anything like that before. And so Jason can help you process that, especially with family, husbands and wives. Definitely take it. You will be surprised, and you'll go, oh, he's not just a jerk. That's why he does that.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And vice versa, ladies. There is a reason behind every action. So,
yeah.
All right. So thank you, Jason. This was fun. I enjoyed this. I love talking to you because I like the bullet points. I like the facts. I like, just lay it all out. We don't need all the fluff. Let's just do it. So, but yeah, so just go tell Esther
again, Melissa.
that it was great, and that yours is actually longer than hers. So there's that. So.
Oh man. Oh, that's good.
So, all right. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody now. I appreciate everybody listening. Again, if this is your first time here, I hope you had a good time listening to this. I hope you learned some things. I hope you'll get connected. If you have any questions for me about anything you heard, contact me. Information's in the show notes. If you want to get connected with Jason, all his information is in the show notes to connect with him. If this is not your first time, thank you for coming back. And either way, we would love for you to share this, like it, love it on all the platforms. It's everywhere. And we look forward to hanging out with you again next week and see who's going to be here, because I don't know yet. So, as usual, I don't know what I'm doing next week, but it's going to be a good one. So, y'all take it easy, and if you can't be good at it.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of After the Well. We hope you really liked it. We would love to hear your feedback. Give us some likes, some reviews, some love. Share it with your friends. All the links and information are in the comments or in the show notes of the episode that you're currently listening to. Thanks, and we look forward to hanging out with you again.